Okay, I want to welcome everybody. We're going to call the June 26th meeting of 2019 meeting of the Quinsigamond Lake Commission to order. Thank you all for coming. First is to review and act on the, no, there's no events, I'm sorry. First thing I'm reading ahead here. Approval of the meeting minutes from May 2019. Everyone get a chance to read those?
Make a motion, we approve.
Second the motion, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor? Aye. Abstain? Nays? Okay, so voted. Review and approval of bills and expenses. What do we got this year?
We have two from Coin Press. They're for stamps. One is for $23.75. It reads deposit only. The other one is for $23.75, and it's a Lake Commission address stamp. So those are the two.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So voted.
Hey, George.
Okay.
Glad to see Officer Valerie didn't challenge anything there.
Just keeping an eye on this new treasurer, though. All right, we're going to go on to commissioners' reports. And I'll start it off. I think this is going to be a theme tonight. The theme is it's going to be boat docks. And just to, we took a little ride around the lake on Saturday, Officer Valerie and I. And, you know, there's a fair amount of boats out there without stickers. There's some docks in there that look like they're abandoned in really shoddy shape, that are posing a danger to navigation in the waterways and the environment and everything else. So, you know, leaving your pressure-treated docks floating around in the lake and barrels from who knows where is not a good thing. There's also a boat in the water down there. But the moral of the story here, and I'll let some of the other folks expand on this, is that we're going to come and we're going to take an inventory of every single structure that's in this lake right now, and you know, and determine whether it's been permitted and I guess announced to us or that we know about that was going in, and that they have a valid license plate and a valid sticker on there. So that's a forewarning. It's coming. We're going to go around and do it. We're going to check the lists against each other and who's paid and who hasn't paid. So we're working on all that stuff. That's that on that. So other part on the lake, you know, it's been a busy season. Saturday when we were out riding around, it was really nice and it wasn't that busy. But Sunday was just you know, crazy and wild. And there's a lot of activity around the parameters of Browning Beach at some really loud music, which I think is, we have to talk about when it becomes a disturbance of the peace, when these guys go out there with these stereos, which are really nice and really clear and crisp sound, but you can hear them for, you know, at least a mile from where they're sitting. So it gets a little obnoxious if you know, if that's in front of your house. So I think we need to do something about that for a little relief. And I guess that's it for me for now.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add a comment to what you said at first. There have been a number of complaints of rowers early in the morning about various things that are half submerged that look like old docks that are seemingly different positions every other morning, and they're getting a little worried about
Floating
maybe
around.
hitting one of them.
Yeah. Well, that's the concern. You know, if someone leaves it in there, and you know the waves come on shore, and it basically inches its way out, and when it gets to a point where the legs don't touch anymore, it's going to float. So, and depending on the wind and the current and the waves, and you know, it could end up anywhere, and you don't know. It's unpredictable. So I had someone tell me that they actually hit a barrel. I should say near hit. It was a near miss in Flint Pond, because the thing was not, you know, I think it was blue, and but it was mostly submerged, so it must have had water in it, and they just missed it. It was in the, you know, the regular travel path. So it's a dangerous thing. I mean, we're not doing this to well, one thing, we're doing it to keep the lake clean and to keep the lake safe, but it's extremely dangerous, especially with a, you know, brown pressure-treated dock that's, you know, just barely above the surface. You're not gonna see it. You're not gonna see it in the wind or a chop. You're not gonna see it at night. A skier could hit, or a tuber, a jet ski, anything that it could literally kill somebody. So it's important that we get them out of there, and it's, you know, probably easier for us to go around the perimeters of the shoreline and get them out when they're not floating, because we don't have to go looking for them, or they're more visible. So all that said, it's coming and it needs to be done. I'd rather not. That said, I'd rather not use law enforcement to do all this work. You know, these guys, we have limited resources with law enforcement. It's a busy, busy time for them, and they got enough stuff to do out there. So I'd like to request some volunteers. I'm going to approach the Watershed Association and ask them if anyone wants to donate some time in a boat, and we can go out and ride around. I am going to do this, so I'm going to volunteer my time to go out and do this and to make the lists and to make sure that we have everything on there. So, but I want to do I want some other help with that. And I really don't want to use the valuable resource. We really need law enforcement on there doing their job, which is extremely difficult in the environment that they're in out there. So I'm happy that they're out there doing what they're doing now. So it's good to see them. Although I haven't seen the environmental boat out too much. So I don't know what's going on with those guys. Anyway, that's really all I have for my report. Mr. Pica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number one, as I typically do, let me just say that apparently the eaglets thrive, and there's two there on Drake Island. Number two, Mr. Chair, I would hope that the Lake Quinsigamond boating public can continue to show excellent etiquette this coming Tuesday night, when the city of Worcester will be shooting off its fireworks. That's my understanding. I'm looking at you, Captain Steele. Is that correct, Tuesday evening?
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting. And again, I hope we can continue to show, and which leads me to another thing in terms of etiquette. Rule number 4 in part says, the use of a bullhorn, megaphone, or other amplification device after 8 p.m. or before 7 a.m., except in an emergency, shall constitute a disturbance of the peace. Well, relative to the new normal and phenomenon of loud and quality music amplification, an example of such might be moored boats awaiting the fireworks at 8:30, 9:30 at night, this coming Tuesday night, and blaring music. Frankly, that's not just poor etiquette, that potentially is a safety issue. If the music was so loud that people weren't taking notice of other boats maneuvering around them for whatever reasons, I would just hope people could, again, take that into regard as another aspect of proper etiquette at a time when, frankly, from my observation of things in the section of the lake from Kings Point to the Route 9 Bridge, there's past firework evenings on the lake, 200 to 300 potentially boats that are in that area. I mean, certainly someone can edify my comments, but from an observation of things, it looks like there's literally a couple hundred boats plus. So I would just ask that if people want to play their music, you know, keep it within a decent sound level so that, again, it doesn't interfere with other people's enjoyment of the lake, but also literally get in the way of people being able to concentrate on what they're doing in terms of maneuvering their boats around, because it becomes tight quarters. There's a lot of boats out there at a time like that. And I think that's it at this time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
I know that we've talked about this in the past, but is there, I would also ask, I'm going to ask this in a volunteer effort, I guess, before I put it in front of the board. But, you know, I'd really like to see like a no-wake zone time between Kings Point and the Burns Bridge on the night of the 2nd. And one of the problems that you have there is because people are rafted up and, you know, someone comes through because they're late or whatever to get to the thing, or they want to get out of there quick, you know, they just kind of take off. And, albeit they're going slow, like 13 or 14 miles an hour, so they, they have control of the boat, and they're under the speed limit at night and all that. Still, the boat wake at 14 miles an hour in most runabouts, that's the highest you're gonna have in a wake, when that's the most dangerous part of, that part of the wake. So it is a hazard, because people, maybe standing up in a boat, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, like you said, so I would ask that everyone observe that, and please do not make a wake at all. Not go, 10 miles an hour, not make a wake, like so go like 6 miles an hour, and just putt out of, in and out of the area. It won't be a bad thing, and it won't take you long to do it, and hopefully it'll be a nice night. But I don't know if that's something you guys want to discuss or rule on or vote on, or.
Fine. Sounds good to me.
It's fine with us.
All right. Okay, is that it, Mike? Okay. Mr. Valieri?
Just a couple of things, continue to remind residents that, I see the social media posts on the community page and, Watershed Association. We're limited to myself and a couple other guys doing the work out there. I know it gets frustrating, it's frustrating for us, seeing how crazy it was. Just Sunday alone, it was stressful. We ran out of tickets, we didn't have enough. It was just so crazy. But if you see something crazy going on, call us. We try and respond to everything that we can, but just be patient with us, because it's just one or two guys out there, and you get, 60 jet skis, 200 boats. It's virtually impossible to be everywhere on the lake with, one boat out there. Worcester was working one side, we were working the other. It was absolute chaos this weekend. And we're doing our best. Just if you see something going on, give us a call. We can't do anything if you don't call us, and try and address the situation as it comes up. As far as 4th of July goes, not sure what's going on is manning the boat. I'm sure the command staff will take care of that, but haven't seen the environmental out much. I don't think they're going to be out much this year. They're limited staffing as well, so.
How many EPOs are there that, I remember last year, 2 years ago, the guy, they said like 11 or
11 or 12 that cover
Yeah.
40 towns,
40, yeah.
so.
And 200 ponds.
Yeah, it's drastically understaffed
So,
for this time of year.
that's all I have.
All right. Okay. Thank you. A question, if there's something going on land, I noticed that Browning Beach had like a bonfire going, and there was a cruiser on North Lake Ave. I don't know if they're giving parking tickets. Is that a no parking zone right there?
I don't know offhand.
There's literally like a line of cars, like it was, someone was going to the beach.
Yeah, my officers reported that they had gone over with Shrewsbury PD to Brownie Beach to take a look at that. I've spoken with the officers that work those areas over at Indian Lake. At our lake, one of the problems we have with police officers is on a 90-degree day or an 85-degree day, they say, Captain, I don't want to be the guy that drives up and say, get out of the water.
Yeah.
So, but I understand that the activities at Brownie Beach were above and beyond what they should have been. We'll have someone take a look at that. You need a sound permit to have any kind of event, if there was some sort of event there to make that kind of noise, and there was no sound permit was pulled, and this police department issues a sound permit, so I know there was no sound permit for whatever was going on there. We'll have our officers look at that, but we're experiencing the same problem that Shrewsbury is. In the city proper, we're out straight. I'm having a hard time staffing the boat because we're trying to put police officers in the cruisers. We graduate a new class of police officers on Friday, so that's gonna help us a little bit. But I do know that this was a specific problem. It required both Shrewsbury and Worcester to go over, and they said that was beyond their capacity to deal with it from the boats. It needed to be dealt with from the land side.
From the land
With
side.
police cars where we can put handcuffs on people and take them away. But we'll be looking at that in the future. Also, I want to tell you, Mr. Chairman, I enthusiastically support your plan for the review of the docks and the former docks, especially without requiring the police to, law enforcement to do the job. I think that's a good idea. It seems to me from the time I've been on this commission, we have more former docks in the lake than ever before. I don't know if it's just, came about some bad weather, or if a bunch of docks went in at a certain time and they've all failed. But that is something that needs to be looked at. I've heard that from my officers as well as from here. I did see the newspaper on Monday. It brought a smile to my face. Showed a picture of a little child playing on Lake Park, Lake Quinsigamond, and it said, "Oh, the waves that were coming from the wakes of the boats going by. The kid was playing in the waves." So I said, "Oh, I guess sometimes the boats do must make a wake on occasion." And for the 4th of July coverage, I know the lake is busy. At this time, I have not seen the schedule, so hopefully we'll be on the lake also. Do you know, was fire department on the lake before on the 4th of July, or just police? Do you know?
I don't believe a fire was out there,
No,
no,
okay.
just police.
All right. I know they're up where the fireworks go off. I didn't know if they're on the lake or not.
Fire was out there Saturday, right?
That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Can I, Mr. Chair, relative to law enforcement being here tonight, I'd just like to know what might go into the criteria, what's called disturbing the peace? Is it one complaint, 2, 3, 4 different entities? I mean, sometimes I know one neighbor might have a problem with another neighbor, and if he so much as coughed, the other neighbor calls it a
Babies
complaint.
crying, dogs barking, it was awful, Your Honor, right about there, when the testimony is that.
Right. I think that you actually identified it, Mike.
Okay,
We have a Rule 4
yep,
Yeah.
that says, you can have bullhorns and whatnot. I mean,
amplification after 7 AM
Amplification,
and not
and-
after 8 PM, I
I
believe
mean,
it, yeah.
this stereo,
Yeah.
in this particular case, the one is down by, what's the name of that island, Half Moon or Half? The one off of Blake Island there, right to the east of it. The little one, off the stone.
Near Sunset Beach,
Yeah, no, the one out in the lake, right next to yours.
Drake Island,
No, the other side.
Stones Island,
East.
Lone Pine Island.
All right. So anyway, a little island out there, they tend to park right there in front of it. I don't know if they're going on the island or not on the island, but that thing literally lights up that whole area. If you have a house on Old Faith, on Smith Lane, on Edgemere, you're gonna hear it. It's incredible.
It's just late at night, after dark?
Oh, yeah.
What's this?
It's after 8 o'clock, that's for sure, and it's, I've seen them out there. I went over there one night at like 10:30, 11 o'clock and asked them to turn it down. And, they did. And, I went home, but they could have lit up right after I saw my light go out, but I don't know. But it's loud. It's loud. So
Thank you,
that's-
Mr. Chair.
That's one, thank you. All right. Captain Steele. Oh, you already did yours, sorry.
My report is complete.
Your report's complete.
And
I didn't check you
It
off.
has been submitted.
Thank you. Mr. Polito.
Yeah, I'd just like to hit on Brownie Beach. Like,
Yep.
I counted around 15 jet skis that were parked on the shore, which is, I guess, the issue with that is when they take off, they just like take off into the
Are
middle
they
of the
loading
lake.
them over at Brownie Beach? Are they getting in the
No.
water there?
No.
They put them, sorry to interrupt, they put them all in at North Quincy Boat Ramp. There was a jet ski club from Lowell and Lawrence out there this weekend.
Yeah, they told me we had the people from,
It was like a organized
And it
like
was an
club?
actual club. All the jet skis were registered out of New Hampshire, and all the registrations were out of Mass.
were what?
Were out of Massachusetts. All the they're residents from Massachusetts.
Registered
All
in New
their
Hampshire.
jet skis registered out of New Hampshire.
Do you know if they had New Hampshire boat licenses?
No, well, they're in Massachusetts, so it doesn't matter.
No, I'm just,
No, I don't know if they do. If they did or not.
I'm just determining whether
think that what they're
these
doing
guys
is
know
they're-
the rules and they know not to do stupid
Well, I
stuff.
think they're all respectful. They came right over. They weren't The only problem was they had the huge party at Brownie Beach, but other than that,
Oh, is that what they did when they got done? They went over?
They all
'Cause I was
went over
wondering why
there,
all the
but
jet skis would be
weren't really
parked.
getting too many complaints from that group themselves. They seemed pretty squared away as far as rules and regulations, had all their license, all their registration, everything was active, and they are very respectful, so. Guess that's what you get when you have the clubs come in, so. It
Yeah.
was just busy, made it a lot harder, a lot more traffic. Sorry, Ken, go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, that's good. The other issue is over at Eastern Point. Last year or so, they built some new condos. They put in for a application to install new docks. We discussed the placement of where the docks were going to be set. They were supposed to be set tight to the existing walls and tucked in behind the clubhouse. The new docks seem to be protruding out into the lake more than what we had discussed. So that needs to be addressed. Now, I don't know who installed the docks. I have no idea who did it. I don't know if it's the developer or if it's the association that did it from the Eastern Point. Also, at Eastern Point, they installed new jet ski docks. Those are were tied on to the existing jet ski area. They seem to be sticking out too. A suggestion with that is to move the new ones to the other end of the docking area. Would be, was it south?
South, yeah.
South, southerly on the existing dock, so they don't
Yeah.
stick out.
Yeah,
And then one other issue, there's one, two, and then the third one is new dock permits. I believe if somebody's applying for a new dock permit, before it's issued, they need to come before the board. Is that correct?
depends on if there are legacy docks there. You know, we encourage any big projects certainly to come forward, like Eastern Point did last year.
Well, because I know in the past, anybody that came in to put a new dock in would come before us. And the reason being is, as you know, everything on the lake is tight.
Yeah.
So if there isn't an existing dock there.
Right.
And they come in and there hasn't been a dock there historically, there's usually, it could be an issue. So I would just suggest that any new docks come in and see us so we can look at it, so there's not an issue.
Okay, I agree. I agree with that.
So I think, I don't know who's handling the permits or how the permits come in to the police station or where they go, but perhaps the person should know that there's a new one, it should come here.
Right. We have the new dock application, it's online, you can read it, but the wording on it can be confusing, because it sounds like you put the dock in, and then you go, and,
Yeah, it's incorrect.
right,
Yeah,
no, that's,
what
it's
what
kind
it
of,
does sound. I think
It's
once
kinda
you
backwards from what you
construct
should
it,
do.
you have to give the diagram,
Yeah.
come in, then have us come down, take a look at it, and then.
Because we always
determine-
looked at the diagram before we did anything.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
We
Most of
always-
the time when it gets to us, it's a system. It's
We'll
not
have to
like a-
change the wording on it.
Yeah,
No,
no, I think that should be easy.
Well, any new docks in the past has always come here, anyone.
Right.
It's always come here.
New dock, not,
Any new dock that was installed in the lake would come here. An existing dock, if it's in the lake, it's in the lake. I mean,
Right.
it's already been approved.
yeah, but I see a lot of docks that were, they had existing docks, but they either improved upon it, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, or they expanded it.
Well, and that's an issue, because if they expand it over the allowed square footage, well, then there's an issue. So if something like that, that needs to come here.
Right.
Because then you get into something like what's going on at Eastern Point.
Right,
Or you have a neighbor that is doing that and it impedes on his neighbor.
right.
I mean,
I mean, you know, we saw a couple docks that were expanded on, they did a real nice job, but they were like,
80 feet.
this thing's like
decks.
huge. Yeah,
well, that's wrong. That's
Yeah.
why, I mean, there's only so much you can do, I suppose, but, I mean,
Right.
there are rules and most people do abide by them. And
yep,
when we stop abiding by the rules, well, then there's an issue. So that, yeah, my thing, you know, Eastern Point, I mean, I would hope, I don't know who to talk to over there, but I would hope before they put any boats on the dock system that needs to be moved, otherwise it's going to be an issue when crew starts.
right. I believe we have a couple people from Eastern Point here. as it turns out. So normally, you know, we prefer that you kind of get on the agenda first and then come into the meeting. In this case, though, because it's a, you know, it's topical, I'm gonna ask you to, if you want, you can come up and kind of tell us. The issue was that when we talked to the developer last year, at the end of this, it was before he turned the association over, or turned over the property to the association, that, you know, he came to it with a dock plan. The concern we have with the dock plan at that time, and I don't see the QRC guys here, but at that time, there's a race course, a crew course that goes right by Eastern Point. At that particular point, it's tight. It's fairly tight. The shore kind of almost butts up with the clubhouse there. It's really tight to that. So we'd asked that they could just adjust the design of the dock so to kind of suck it into the cove there, because you got like a little indent. And, you know, when we went back and forth, and I believe Patrick was sitting up at the table with the people that were designing it at the time.
Yep.
And they said, hey, this will work. It appears that either we misjudged that, or that they didn't go with the design that they brought in here, because he had a design that we didn't want him to do, which sounds more like the one that went in there. I haven't seen it, but on the issue of the jet ski dock, okay, if it's possible to move that to the south end of that dock, I think you have land there, right?
We do. I have pictures, if that would help us.
Yep.
So are we gonna get later on the agenda, or are we gonna speak now to this?
I would just go through it now, because we're on
Why
it.
don't you come up and
Hey,
state
come
your
on,
name?
come on up.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate the time.
Just
today.
identify
I know that
yourselves
it
as
was-
well in your address.
This is an unexpected ad, and
Who are you, for the
I'm Ryan
record?
Foley. I'm one of the trustees. This is Peter Lane. He's also on the board. So
There's a picture of the existing docks, and then there's a picture of
Yeah.
what we added.
So there's really two phases to our plan. One, the jet skis, there were existing jet ski ports there. And what we ended up doing is trying to clean up an inefficient system. So we've had a lot of issues with wake boats coming by and actually knocking up the jet skis, and our docks in general we're actually adding another 1,500 pounds of weights because of the wake boats coming by. So, you know, we're trying to, you know, be good ambassadors for the lake. The community enjoys the lake. And what we're trying to do is shore up our system so that it will, you know, not only survive, you know, very large wakes now
Yeah.
that are coming by, but also be more efficient. So we ended up on the jet ski docks, we relocated one to match up and mirror the existing dock structure. And if you're actually on the jet ski dock length, it doesn't exceed the point that is actually the gazebo, and it's all tucked in. And if you look at where the crew boats run, it will not impede with that. Quite frankly, the last slip is out an additional 20 feet past where the jet skis are, and we're just going in a straight line. So
Okay.
that certainly won't impede where the crew boat is. And then on the design of the docks, there's two main things that we wanted to do. One, make sure that we did kind of tuck it into the bay, and the second was to try to have safe access for the community members. So there's been some erosion there. There were actually docks there at one point. There was an old, if you look at there's an old dock platform there, and at some point during the 30-year cycle, they moved docks to the other side, or eliminated the docks or something. But there were docks there at one point, so what we wanted to do is have a safer access point for the community. Again, we don't see any way that would impede with the races. They are far out of the way of where those lanes would typically be.
Pretty sure it's almost a straight line from the old docks right across to the new, even though it seems like it's sticking out. There's a big rock there, first of all, that we had to go, as you can see the rock that we had to navigate. And that concrete thing that's old that we thought about using.
Right.
It's been deteriorated for 35 years, and it just seemed unsafe to be having
We
people
can't
go on
really see
it.
it in the picture here.
Yeah, you can't see it, but it looks so bad. So we
The
just,
original design came off of that.
yeah, but that thing, there was like no way to get there, and it just looked so bad, so unsafe. We thought this would be a safer coming off the existing gazebo.
Yeah, and to the board's point, it was confusing on how we were to get approval. Certainly, we don't want to put a $70,000, we did not skimp out in the system, it's a $70,000 system. We would not have put that in if we recognized that an approval was needed beforehand, and we were under the impression that the Lake Commission had approved docks because they were historical docks there at some point. You know, and we did call, and it seemed like we just come down and apply after the application was
Yeah,
approved.
it looked like in the wording they had to obey, you know, how they're constructed, and if, as long as you obeyed all that, then it seemed like you build and then register.
Right.
That's kind of the way it seems like in the wording.
It's a nice system. I kind of like the way it's shaped and the design of it and all that, but the issue is, okay, that this is totally different than the design we approved. So in the case of this particular project, right, this came before the board and we did approve it. This is totally different from that, and I'm thinking that this thing does stick out further than, it certainly sticks out further than the other system, because the other system was behind that rock. So I'm sure that it wasn't the same way. I see why you did what you did. You know, from a design standpoint, it's nice, but the problem is the position of it may in fact impede with the course.
You know, it was interesting because we looked at the initial thought was they were gonna put a gangway off of the existing concrete pad
Yeah.
down.
That pad's a mess, so I don't.
Yeah.
It is, and
Yeah.
the slope of that actually would have put the main fixed dock area past
The rock.
that rock.
It's,
So
yeah, it's really shallow right there. You'd
we-
have to go out.
It's actually, although it may not seem this way, it's tighter to the shore because we were able to put aluminum stairs. And because we use stairs instead of a ramp, we could tuck that whole system in further. So when we were discussing with the dock installation, and Ron Thibodeau, he installs a lot on the lake, very aware of, you know, what would work and what wouldn't. He suggested to get that as close to the shore as possible, to use an aluminum stairs, which, you know, quite frankly, costs more money, but we felt it was the best thing to do.
Right. Well, I don't want to go back and forth on that. What I want to say is that that's right, you do want to get that closer to the shore. You could have actually done that by pulling the whole system in and putting this main run could have been literally in the lake, like stationary, and you could have run the fingers off of that. So it could have been done a different way than it is now and be pulled in, so.
It's fair, and we
Because
need to explore all
what
options.
happens with that particular piece of water is it goes out and it's shallow till you get to that rock and then it just starts to go down.
Right.
Yeah, the main dock is sitting on the ground right now,
Right.
that.
So, that's my comment on that, but, you know, I guess I'd like to go down and review it and make sure that, you know, if you gotta move it, now's the time to do it. I'm sure Ron can come back and adjust things if that's what has to happen, but,
Could we actually have a meeting? That's what I was gonna ask. Could we have a meeting, or are you just gonna review it, or do you wanna meet with us and talk about it, or?
well, I wanna go down and see it.
Okay.
That's something you're interested in doing, Sean?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I just asked that they do not use it.
We don't have any boats on it now.
Yeah, don't,
Yeah,
I
so
We
would,
don't have the plate yet, so until we register, we're not gonna put boats on.
Don't do that because.
don't put any, because if you have to move it, then it's a big issue.
Yeah, we wouldn't put boats on it without decals,
So
we
we'll
know
get,
that.
you know, we'll get down there in the next, I don't know when you're available, but,
Tomorrow's the only day I'm available for 2 weeks,
okay, so we'll talk about,
in the evening.
in the evening? All right, so would that work for you guys if we could get
Yeah,
this tomorrow?
absolutely.
All right,
Yeah, I'd like to go.
all right, perfect.
Can we how do we find out what the answer, do you want a name, number, or?
Well, I would suggest we all meet down there. You guys-
Oh, great,
It's not
beautiful.
a secret, we're not gonna go in there and, you know, wait till smoke comes out of the chimney.
Yeah.
We want you guys involved.
No, I'd love for you to meet us, yeah.
Catholic reference.
Yeah, I got it. Catholic school boy.
So, yeah, so, you know, we're not trying to give
No,
you a
we get
hard
it,
time, we just
yeah.
wanna make sure that everybody's safe on it.
Likewise.
It's gonna be it'll be a big issue once the crew boats come out, and there's a boat sticking out, it'll just be a mess. So if we can avoid that, and I think it can simply be solved.
What time should we meet down there?
That was the time.
It's up to you guys.
What's
I'm
good for you?
available 3 on, so
I'm 3 on.
3 to
I'm
11.
good, anytime you want.
So I can meet after 4,
Okay, you wanna say 4:30?
4:30?
Sounds good.
Is that good?
We'll meet down at the gazebo, that's where all the docks come off
Yeah.
of.
Doug?
Okay,
That's fine.
4:30.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Ann, you have something to say?
Sumner from 99 North Quinsigamond. Just, I know the commission is well aware of it when we're taking a look at, when you're going down to visit there. It's not just the crew lanes, it's that, as you know, from the commission.
That's right, we have to
it's
keep-
that right of way that
Right.
boats also need to be going past.
Thank you.
If there are
That's
any
a good point.
boats that are docked there, it's possible that those boats are longer than the docks, and then they'll protrude even further past where you visually see the docks with no boats on them. So just to keep that,
Exactly.
keep that in the picture as you
Yep,
take a
nope,
look at it.
that's-
So
thank you. That's a
Thank
good-
you very much.
Very good point. Yep.
I don't, Mr. Chair, I've lived in the lake for 40 years. I have not historically seen any other docks there. I was on the commission when we were approached by the people who were gonna put in the dock. It was different, and I have some concerns relative to what I'm hearing and what I know, and that, just be prepared, you may have to move it a little, okay? Just be prepared, enough said. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Is that, everyone good with that?
Yep.
All right.
Picking up on the Worcester side.
Bill Nelson, you haven't let him speak yet.
What's that?
Bill Nelson hasn't had his turn.
What's that, Bill?
Nothing to report. We waited for that, yes.
All right. Good enough. Okay, we don't have any events coming up to vote on. So we had a letter from the town that they're creating a commission for open space in Shrewsbury, and they're going to the different boards. This is kind of a board issue, but they're going to the different boards that have that are stakeholders in in those types of resources. And obviously Lake Quinsigamond is one of those, and they're asking for a volunteer to to serve on this commission for open space. I think it's a good thing. I wish I could do it, but I cannot. Is there any interest with anyone here? You don't have to be from Shrewsbury.
Don't have to be from Shrewsbury, he was saying.
No, my wife, I'm on 5 boards, my wife said
Yeah,
one
okay.
more divorce.
Yeah, I might.
Some guys.
Okay, well, let us know when if you
Mr.
change
Chair,
your mind on that.
My time is kind of tight, too. But I recognize the importance of this issue, though. Oh, boy.
What always concerns me with this kind of stuff is you say, oh, geez, I can't do it, or this and that, and then, something happens and they make a decision, and you go, why'd they do that? It's too late to do anything about it.
I can't do it because I'm a member of the Conservation Commission.
Right.
And they've already appointed somebody from the Conservation Commission, so it'd be 2, so that isn't right.
Right. So,
Well, we'll think about it.
all right,
Maybe
yeah,
somebody can come
let's
up
put
with
it down and
something.
maybe one of the other
Do we have any
members.
members that aren't here we could put on the board?
You can vote.
Can we vote them in?
It's a new draft.
Amanda Avery?
Commission
Amory?
who's interested in open space.
Scott Conway showed some interest.
I think he likes that kind of stuff, too.
He does. So,
Scott's moved to North Carolina.
You might wanna come back.
It's the-
all right, so, we'll, I guess we'll take some time to digest that and see what we can do. Update on the lake management plan. Where we are right now today is, we have an RFP going out, to get the weed treatment going, to get those guys out there and going. The weeds are growing. And, I've been going around the places where I normally can't go with my boat, on the paddle board to see what, to see how it's going on down there. So on the south end where we really focus on most of the treatment, I'm saying south of Route 20, it's heavy. It's heavy for weeds down there. But I've also noticed, some weeds popping up in other areas of the pond. Specifically, you know, along the bigger part of the lake, little patches of things. I saw some in front of, on the Shrewsbury side, kind of across from the Marine Corps League. There's a patch of milfoil kind of growing there. Not a whole bunch of it, but, you know, this would be the time to hit that. What we have to do as a board is, one of the things, because we're, you know, natural heritage is basically nixed any treatment north of Route 20 because of vasei, even though there's no known vasei in that particular area where I'm talking about. So I think that probably the next step for us would be to go back to natural heritage and say, can we include these spots further north on the lake? They're worried about a downstream effect of the chemical, which everybody I've talked to with the stuff that we're using, there's not really a whole bit of downstream effect for that stuff. Because we're using sonar and diquat, clipper, I think, are the ones we're using. So I guess we have to kind of figure that out. But I really would like to start hitting those things, Mike.
So, Mr. Chairman, we can't treat north part of the lake at all?
No.
I thought that was just for last year. I thought that was just for last year. I thought we were able to treat other areas that we normally treated in the past.
Nope. The way that they've come back, and they've come back to the conservation commissions that was part of it. Part of it was you can't, their guidance was, they don't have any problem with stuff south of Route 20, but north of Route 20, there's a restriction. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, the other thing too is that vasei is growing right now. This is when it kind of comes up and all that, so we'd like to get someone down there, a diver down, to pull samples of vasei and to have it tested with, at the DNA level, to make sure that it is what we think it is.
Can we vote on that now and have up to a certain amount of money and have somebody do that?
Yep, I think it could be as much as, I'm gonna say $5,000 if we hire a diver. It's gonna be similar to what Dr. Paget did for us. So,
But we can't
Does
treat
that
till we do
include the
that.
testing, that 5K?
yes.
But we can't do anything until that's done, right?
No, we can still treat on the south side, which we're going to do. And the south side is by far the heaviest concentration of
Right,
invasives
but
that we have.
in the past, the north side was treated, and we avoided the areas where the vasei was. Now, what you're telling me is we can't do that at all.
I'm telling you, that's what they're telling.
I didn't understand, I didn't think that was the case, but I would make a motion that we appropriate up to $5,000 to have somebody do the testing on that vasei to make sure it is in fact that.
Mr. Treasurer, do we have the money?
We'll have to make sure we have the funds, but I believe we do.
I'd second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstained? Okay, so voted. Thank you. Update from Jacqueline Burmeister, Environmental Analyst, Lakes and Ponds, Worcester DPW and Parks. You must have like a huge business card.
Good evening. So, a lot of exciting things. I was out on Lake Quinsigamond this week twice already, doing routine monthly or twice monthly sampling. Some quick updates, the Secchi depth or the transparency is an average of about 13 and a half feet throughout the lake. This is slightly better than it's been this time of the year in the last 2 years, when it was about 10 feet. The temperature of the water at the surface is 73 degrees. We have, which is fairly normal for this time of year. We have a thermocline setting up around 16 feet. This is when the temperature of the water below the surface starts dropping really quickly. And the oxygen in the water starts dropping around 32 feet deep. So that's a level that's going to continue to get higher and higher in the water column as the summer goes on, as the oxygen is depleted. But for now, it's kind of where it was last year, and all was good. We've been sampling for total phosphorus, which is one of the nutrients that's used, or that's looked at for purposes of understanding propensity for cyanobacteria blooms and feeding invasive aquatic plants. We found that up to this point in the season, we are getting no detectable levels of total phosphorus at the surface of Lake Quinsigamond in the open water, which is really good. So the detection limit is 0.01 milligrams per liter. So all levels are below that threshold. That's not to say that there aren't places in the lake where there are higher levels. It's just in the open surface water. We are quite low, which is good. So we have been, the state DCR has been testing for bacteria at Lake Park and Regatta Point. Up to this point, we have had no closures at the beaches for the summer. I just received the latest numbers for the enterococci bacteria. It was 5 MPN, most probable number, is the units that are used at Lake Park, and 9 at Regatta Point. These are very low numbers. For example, the threshold for a closure for the day is 61. So we're doing quite well. This time last year, we were already closed at both beaches for bacteria levels being too high. So, so far so good, and we could just keep our fingers crossed that that trend continues.
Question?
Yep.
Is that correlated with the large amount of rain we've had this year?
We have had some rain this year already, but it's hard to say. We've been having like very strange bacteria issues that we're not really understanding completely, which is what has led to some of the actions that the commission has taken as far as trying to hire someone to create a sampling plan to better understand how these patterns are occurring. Does it have to do with the rain? Where is the actual source of this bacteria? Is it human? Is it goose? Is it caterpillar? Like, where is this all coming from? And so what we know to this point is that we've had good luck and the beaches are open. So, but on that point, as far as that study, I noticed there's no one here from the Watershed Association to give a report on. I could talk about I've been working with Tucker, the student from Clark University who was hired by the Commission and the Watershed Association. We've been working on the Quality Assurance Project Plan, which is the document that outlines the sampling procedures that will be used by him and the volunteers that come on board that he's going to recruit over the rest of the summer. This document will assure DEP that the data that we're collecting is of high quality and useful for them, and therefore making it a funding priority for them to continue projects like this. So we are just about finishing that document to submit it. Tomorrow, one of the members of the Worcester Sewer Department is going to be giving a training to Tucker, as well as some of the other Watershed Association members, to ensure that the sampling procedures that he uses and trains others to use are in line with what is acceptable to the state. So that's exciting. So after that, we should be, once we submit the document, we should be able to begin sampling. Tucker will be able to take up to like 6 samples a week for the rest of the summer, using that sampling plan that we all, the Commission, the Watershed Association, and the city have worked on together. So that's exciting news. Another thing, the Cyanobacteria Monitoring Collaborative that's been going on in the city of Worcester. We had our second meeting earlier this month. There were samples submitted from Lake Quinsigamond, nothing out of the ordinary. We saw a little bit of everything. We saw a lot of diatoms. That report will be coming out in the next week or two. You could see the first report on the City of Worcester website from May, and the June one will be out as soon as I finish writing that. And it will have pictures of all the cool things that we found in Lake Quinsigamond as well as the other lakes and ponds throughout Worcester. And so you can kind of compare and see all the microscopic organisms that are thriving in front of us but invisible to us with the naked eye. So that's been great. We've had a lot of excitement around that project. The last thing I wanted to report was that I mentioned many times over the last few years that we have had an ongoing study with the environmental or the engineering firm Brown and Caldwell. It was a $100,000 project that involved 2 years of sampling in Lake Quinsigamond at 15 tributaries and outflows and 4 in-lake locations for all kinds of water quality parameters. They ended up sampling a total of 6 days in wet and dry conditions. They have sent a draft report to the city. We are just going through it now, and I will hopefully be able to present on this report and the findings at the next commission meeting and provide a one-pager on the major findings. Yeah. So, any questions?
Very good.
Can you get some posters made up and of the little microorganisms and stuff that are in the water and post it at Brownie Beach? Maybe just, I think people should be informed of what's in the water when they go in.
Everything that we found is naturally occurring, so we haven't found anything alarming in Lake Quinsigamond yet. We've had some great volunteers, though, that have been coming for the last few years pretty religiously, and it's been really a pleasure. A lot of people are bringing their kids, and it's a lot of fun. And I encourage anyone who's interested to reach out to me, and I could get them in touch with the local volunteers to learn more.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thanks for all the hard work. The next thing is, my trusty laptop. The report for the Watershed Association, which no one could come tonight. We asked them to do it, so hopefully I can find this thing. And I'll be happy to read it off. Yeah, sorry. I thought I had it all organized in here, but apparently not. Talk amongst yourselves.
This is when they would organize smoking lamps there. Smoking lamps and then you can smoke. That's what they need, talk amongst yourselves, smoking lamp is lit. Actually, I was scheduled to go to the Air Force again.
Yeah?
I lost my appointment because some other Democratic representative.
All right.
Find it?
What? No.
Luckily, I read
I
it, so
usually end up going down to my brother's place on the Cape.
I already took it out. Okay, so, I don't know what happened to it. But Jacqueline already went through the stuff we're doing with our joint effort there for getting the QAP up and with Tucker on getting the studies done and working with the volunteers. And so that's going really well. The QAP is incredibly important for us to move forward in because, in accordance with our plan, we're going to do testing on the lake and you know, that's a necessary instrument to have, to know how to pull that off. Also, the LQWA wanted to talk about their Lake Quinsigamond Day. They're gonna have it, it's September, you have that written down, Mike? It's going to be, again, at Regatta Point. They're gonna have a bar from noon time to 4. You have a date, Casey?
It's the 7th.
The 7th, September 7th.
Cocktails?
What is it, the date?
September 7th.
Saturday, September
Yep.
7th.
So they're gonna have a boat parade.
Next day is Grandparents' Day for,
7 or 2nd?
There you go, 7.
People are welcome to come by boat.
Yeah, people are welcome to come by boat. It's been a great thing. There'll be a band there, there's gonna be an open mic, that's scary. And
I'll be singing.
that's good. And I encourage everyone on the lake to come. You can meet your neighbors, your lake neighbors on there. It's a great party. Basically, it's a party on the beach. What could be better than that? And the Antique Boat Show will also be going on there, which is always a fun time. And they're gonna have the boat parade. And the antique boats will be also in the boat parade. So,
Saturday, September 7th.
yep.
Is there a theme?
is Labor Day?
Is there a theme this year?
I don't know what the theme is yet. Yeah, we'll announce the theme before the party, but that's coming.
No theme?
So,
Okay. Time did that start, Mike?
the bar opens at 12. Usually the Antique Boat Show opens up around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
It's early.
Okay. And the parade they're gonna do early this year, because that was one of the things that they took some feedback on. So I think that's gonna be around 10 or 11 or something like that. So which will be fun. I think they wanted to get it done before the bar opened up, which probably makes sense. So, it was good. But I've been going, the last few years, it's more and more people have come every year, so it's really starting to pick up. It is a lot of fun, so. I think that was it from there.
Will I be invited this year?
Yeah, you're invited every year.
I am.
Yes, you are. Matter of fact, we asked you to bring the
Horses.
horse.
Well, you asked me to send the horses. You didn't say I could come with them.
I said I wanted Roger on the horse to come down, okay?
All right.
That was my thing, we do.
I'll ride in with my cavalry hat.
I was gonna say with the big hat and. And the meeting date for next month. will
I have down, Mr. Chair, Wednesday, July 31st, 7 PM.
That's,
Sounds good to me.
all right. And,
I'll be in Phoenix the week before, so it works out. I won't miss the meeting after all.
perfect. This wouldn't be the same without you.
That's what I figured.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Favorite motion?
I can't believe you didn't get in on that. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Hey, is anyone going to the car show? I make it.
I made one.